Ignite is an ongoing series of speedy presentation. Each speaker gets only 5 minutes and 20 slides that auto-advance every 15 seconds.
When does it start? Right now. So my name is Sunni Brown, and I actually wasn't going to talk about the Doodle Revolution because my research is preliminary. However, I got that email asking if I was foo enough, and then I was like, oh, is that a dare? And now I'm here. So I give you the Doodle Revolution. So, oh, hi. I'm a visual thinker. Well, don't look. So people pay me. I am what I refer to as a large-scale strategic doodler. So people pay me to track auditory content and display it to them in a visual language format. And I have a series of whoa moments when I do this. I have a significantly high level of comprehension of the information that I doodle. I also have increased retention and recall of that content weeks and months later, and I can easily immerse myself back into it. Additionally, I've noticed that when I do strategic doodling, I have increased creativity, and I can make solutions for problems that even surprise even me. And finally, my listening skills are like ninja-like. I can discern immediately what's relevant and what's not relevant. So I have these series of whoa moments, and simultaneously I notice that our society frowns on doodling in learning environments, in the boardroom, in the situation room, and in the classroom. So I find that problematic. And so I started trying to do homework about why that might be the case. I'm like, this crabapple, go away. I'm ready for my next slide. Because there was a disparity between the reality of what I was experiencing as a doodler and the way that our society perceived doodling. So I started doing homework, and I discovered 5 interesting things. One of them is that there is no flattering definition of a doodle. In the 17th century, a doodle was a fool. In the 18th century, a doodle was a corrupt politician. And in the modern day society, in the 1930s, we see the emergence of our verb to doodle, and it means to be lazy or waste time. So it's frowned upon. Additionally, there was this period of time when the ballpoint pen came into play, and people had access to mass-produced pulp paper. So they actually were kind of like flipping around, just like, whee, look at these tools we have. But it wasn't necessarily meaningful at that period of time. And finally, in the 1930s, Freudianism was at its height, and people believed that you could actually psychoanalyze someone based on their doodles and dig into the recesses of their freaky psyches. And naturally, people have an aversion to that. And finally, this is Dave's image, and I want you to know that I want them to know. But people perceive, I think the physical gesture of doodling gives people the impression that you're not present, right? So whenever there's a speaker, not me, but if there were another speaker, they would think it was rude if you were not paying attention, right? This is an LBJ doodle. But also in our society, really it is. So we don't think that natural leaders actually doodle. We don't think it's appropriate. And the sentence, hi. But that's patently false. So these are Ronald Reagan's doodles. He calls Nancy his poo pants, which I think is hilarious. And anyway, and every president ever in recorded history has always been a doodler. Republicans are actually more prolific doodlers than Democrats, which I find interesting. So here's a better definition of doodle, which is that it's scribblings to help a person think. That definition came out in a 1936 movie called Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and I think Mr. Deeds was so what do we know about the doodle? We know that doodlers retain 30% more information than non-doodlers. We also know that there is a phenomenon called the picture superiority effect, which means that after this event is over, you're only going to remember 10% of what I say, but you're going to remember 90% of what I showed you. And so when you're doodling and you're creating pictures that you get to reflect back on, it actually is a way of processing and retaining information much more significantly. So the doodle's not a joke, okay? You get it? So we also know that almost every genius inventor and innovator and scientist and screenwriter and poet, they all use sketches and doodles in order to get to a solution that they wouldn't otherwise have gotten to. This is Alexander Graham Bell's sketches of the telephone. And there are 3 learning pathways primarily that we all have, and they are these 3. And in order to lock in information, you have to engage at least 2 of those things, or you have to have an emotional experience coupled with one of those things. And so I got that information from the Hadron group, who I call the hard-on group. I love them for that. So to engage your auditory path, they're going to hate when I said that on film. These are the 3 things that you have to do in order to engage the pathways. And I think the reason why the doodle is so powerful for so many people around the world and throughout time is because it actually employs all three of your learning pathways simultaneously, and Doodle makes three. I love it how I have to just have filler stuff because I'm like, okay, got it. So what I'm doing is advocating that I think that the doodle is actually most appropriate in those situations where society actually believes it to be the least appropriate, which is where you have an informationally dense situation and people are accountable for learning that information. So I say bring on the freaking Doodle Revolution.